Hi, my name is Samantha M Clark, and I am the author of The Boy, the Boat, and the Beast. More than that, I'm a lover of stories because you know what? Stories make everything better, even us. And today I'm going to show you how. So if you like movies or TV shows or video games, if you like any of those, and of course, books, all of those are stories. Some video games have different types of stories, and movies have different types of stories, and TV shows. There are magical stories, adventure stories, mystery stories. And my book is a little bit of all of those things. It tells the story of a boy who wakes up on a beach. He doesn't know who he is, where he is, or how he got there. All he knows is that every time he tries to leave, everything turns scary. So, how can a story make everything better? Well, let me start by telling you a story. Once upon a time, there was a girl with big dreams who lived in a magnificent castle. So this, as you might guess, is me. And I think I was around 5 in this picture, and this was my magnificent castle. I had this tent, which looked like a little house, a little sunny house. But to me, that tent was much more than a tent. Sometimes it was a house, sometimes it was a pirate cave filled with treasure, sometimes it was a magnificent castle. It could be anything that I could dream up. And stories were very important for me because I was an only child. I didn't have any brothers or sisters to play with. But in my stories, I could have all the friends that I wanted. And as an only child, it was hard for me because I grew up all over the world. I moved around a lot as a kid, not just to different houses or towns like you might have done or like some of your friends might have done. I moved to different countries around the world. So I started out in this country, in Guyana. This is where I was born, in Georgetown, Guyana, and that little tiny star up at the top of the country. That is where Georgetown is in Guyana. Guyana is in South America, and it's right at the top of South America. And then when I was 1 year old, I moved to England, to the United Kingdom. And I lived in a place called Potter's Bar. And then when I was 5, we moved to a small town in England called Harpenden. And that's just a little bit above. See the star in the map where it says London? I lived, Potter's Bar was like just around there, and then Harpenden was just above there. Then when I was 10, we moved back across the world again to a small island in the Caribbean called Jamaica. And in Jamaica, I lived in Kingston again, where you see right there, and that where the star is, and that's where I lived in Jamaica. And Jamaica's in the Caribbean. And then 2 years later, when I was 12, I moved to another country, another island. And this time I moved to the Cayman Islands. The Cayman Islands are so small, you have to use arrows to show it on the map. See, there it is. There's 3 little islands. There's Little Cayman, Cayman Brac, and Grand Cayman. And they kind of make a bit of a triangle between Cuba and Jamaica. And at the top, right at the top of that map, you can see Florida, the Key West, the edge of Florida. And where I am now in Austin, Texas, is way up higher and to the left of the Gulf of Mexico. That's where Texas is, where I am now. But to give you a small idea of what Grand Cayman looks like, this is Grand Cayman. This is where I lived, and we lived in. I lived in West Bay for a while, which is up where hell is. I lived in Georgetown for a while. I lived in Savannah for a while, all over the place. And my parents, in fact, still live in the Cayman Islands, in Grand Cayman. They live over in East End now. So that is home for me. And now this is a really, really tiny, tiny island. The whole length of the island is only 21 miles, and the width at the widest point is only 8 miles. So when you guys have finished watching this video, you with your parents, you can go on a map and you can try and see from where you are, draw out a line for 21 miles and figure out what is 21 miles away from you. For me, where I am in Austin, 21 miles is not even down to like Round Rock, which is really, really close. And then 8 miles is even smaller than that. So try and figure out, make a little triangle of where you are, where 8 miles is and where 21 miles is. And imagine if you were living in just that little bit of space, just between you and those other areas, and everything around you was water and the ocean. That was all you had. It'd be kind of small, right? Really, really small. But there were some really cool things about growing up there. I got to go to the beach a lot. Here is me water skiing. I think I was around 11 here. No, actually, no, I would have been around 12 here. And I love to water ski. It was a lot of fun. I wasn't very good at it, but I did like it. There also Cayman has lots of stingrays, and I got to see lots of sea life, and the stingrays were wonderful. There's a place called Stingray City where you can pet the stingrays, and it's really nice. They're all tame in that area, but you still have to be careful because they can be really dangerous. And the Cayman Islands are known for their turtles. In fact, when Christopher Columbus discovered the Cayman Islands, he called them Las Tortugas, which means the turtles. And here are some of the turtles in Cayman. So there's lots of turtles. There's even what they call a turtle farm where they go to breed turtles, and you can see them up really close, which is really awesome. So there are some amazing things about living in the Cayman Islands and living in the Caribbean, and I really loved it. But I was an only child, and I was very, very shy, and moving around that often, I was always the new kid in town, always the new kid in school. Because of that, I found it hard to make friends. I was an easy target for bullies. Bullies would often make fun of me. And so I pretty much stuck to myself while I was in school, and I just tried to be invisible. But that could be lonely a lot. And so that's why, if you remember that picture of me when I was little, and that tent that could be a magical castle, I used to go to that place a lot. And I would imagine I could, I could, in my imagination, I could be lots of places and I could have lots of friends. So that's why stories were very, very important to me. And we weren't, my parents didn't have a lot of money, but when we moved and when we were moving around, we couldn't take a lot of things with us. So I couldn't take a lot of books. I had a few, but I couldn't take a lot of them with me. But what we would do is we would go to the library. So here is the library, the first library that I ever went to, which was in Harpenden in England. And I used to go there as a kid when I first learned how to read. And my mom would take me here almost, every week. And I'd come home with a big pile of books and I'd read them all, and I'd be waiting and waiting to get back to the library again. When we went to Jamaica and I couldn't take all of my books with me, I went to this library. And then when we moved to the Cayman Islands and we moved to Grand Cayman, I went to this library. And this is the library in Grand Cayman. And I know it looks like it's kind of a scary place, doesn't it? It looks like a prison or something. But it's in fact this amazing, I think it used to be a post office actually, but it's an amazing library, and has you go through that door and there's just shelves and shelves of books, all of these adventures just there for you to do. And now my book, this book, is in the library that I used to go to as a kid, which is just amazing. So when I went to the library, what I was able to do was I was able to see all of the friends that I had made way back when I was little in England. I'd be able to go and visit all of my friends in the library, no matter where I went in the world, in Jamaica and in Cayman. I could visit Winnie the Pooh and Piglet and hang out with them in the 100-acre woods. And I could go through the wardrobe with the Pevensey kids to Narnia and visit Aslan. I could do all of these things in the library and see all of my friends anytime I wanted, which was very which was very important to me, and it helped made me feel much better. And these are some of my other books, favorite books from when I was a kid. I love the Nancy Drew mystery books. I love the Hardy Boys mystery books, the Beatrix Potter books. I love those stories. All of the Little Miss and Mr. Men books, I loved those. They made me laugh a lot. I really loved Mr. Tickle. He was really funny. And all of the Roald Dahl books, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory was one of my absolute favorites. Maybe because I really love chocolate a lot. I'm not sure. So once upon a time, there was a girl with a big, big, big dream. And because I didn't want to just read stories that other people made, I wanted to write stories that would become books myself. But I wasn't special. I didn't believe, and I had beasts. So when I looked at all of the books that I had on my shelves, they had all of these names of these people that I had never heard of. Judy Blume, Beverly Cleary, Maurice Sendak, Beatrix Potter. I didn't know any of these people personally. And for me, these names, they didn't really look like names. They just looked like these, you know, amazing words, or they were connected to these people who couldn't be anything like me. They had to like live in a cloud, in a golden cloud somewhere, and create these stories. That's what I thought when I was a kid, because I'd never met an author in my life. Growing up in the Caribbean and in England, I'd never met a person who was an author. So I didn't think that these names were actual real life people. I didn't think that I could ever become one of those people. I didn't believe, more than just not thinking that these people, you know, that authors could, were actual people. Once I grew up more and I went to college, I learned when I grew up that authors were actual people, but I still didn't believe that I could be one of those. And part of it was because I had doubts in myself. From being bullied, from what other people had said, and from things in my own head, I always had this voice in my head that would tell me that I wasn't good enough, that I was going to fail. And my parents, who loved me very, very much, but they wanted me to be safe, and they didn't want me to be disappointed. So they suggested that instead of being an author, which is what I really wanted to do, what I wanted to write fiction stories, they suggested that I work for a newspaper. And so I did. So I worked for the Daily Caymanian Compass, and then I worked for the Tampa Tribune and in Florida. And then I worked for a bunch of other magazines after that. For many years, I had a whole career in journalism, and I was a managing editor for a while with magazines, and I loved the work, and it was fantastic. It was a really good job, but it wasn't really what my heart truly wanted. It wasn't what I really, really wanted to do. But I had beasts. Not this kind of beast. This is my dog, Annie, and she's not a beast at all. She's just cute, and she loves stories too. But she's the good kind of beast, a different kind of beast. But the kind of beast that I had were the kind that tell you bad things in your head, that say you're not good enough, that no one likes you, that you're going to fail. So I had two choices. I could either listen to the bully in my head and give up on my dreams, or I could make my own courage and keep trying. Because the thing is, you won't get your dream unless you try. So, because I had to believe in myself while I was writing a book. If I wanted to achieve, I had to find a way to believe in myself. So what I would do is, I wrote this once upon a time story, because stories when I was growing up, these stories were so important to me, and I would be able to, find find friendship with Winnie the Pooh, and I'd be able to be brave when I, just like Lucy Pevensey going through the wardrobe to Narnia, if she was brave, then I could try to be brave. So I wrote my own stories. So I wrote, once upon a time, there was a girl who wrote with her heart, and her stories became books. And I still have that Post-it note on my desk. So I wrote stories. I wrote a story to help myself believe that I could actually do this. And then I wrote about a boy. I wrote a number of, lots of different stories. But then one day I sat down and I wrote about a boy who was a lot like me in a lot of ways. He was scared and he was full of doubts. And even though the story is fantastical, I used a lot of things from my own real life to make the story real. I used Ironshore from Cayman. So this is some Ironshore that is in Cayman. Cayman is actually the top of a dead volcano. So there's Ironshore like this all over the island. And it's you know, and it's very sharp on your feet. And I used to run around when I was a kid. I used to run around on Ironshore on my bare feet all the time. And it was fun because, you know, you got used to it. But so with the Ironshore, there's a part at the beginning of the book where the beach kind of spikes come out at the boy, and that was inspired by the Ironshore. And when the boy gets hungry, he eats sea grapes, and this is a sea grape tree, and sea grapes grow all over the island. They're wild. They grow everywhere. And at one point, he really wants to have a friend, and he sees a little sand crab when he's on the beach. And when I was a kid, I used to love looking at the sand crabs. They would poke their heads out of the little holes and then jump back in really, really fast. And these little sand crabs are so tiny, they'll fit on your palm. And it's hard to even see them because they blend in with the sand. So I used those from my book, for my own life too, and brought them into the story. And I thought about how stories had helped me when I was a kid. And I knew that if I had to make my own happy ending, I had to change my story. So just like with this Once Upon a Time Post-it note. And so I thought, well, this boy, he is scared too, and he has doubts in his head, just like I do. So he then would have tell himself these Once Upon a Time stories so that he could change his own story about himself. Excuse me. So now I'm going to read you a little bit from the book. This is from near the beginning of the book, where the boy has just woken up on the beach, and he's just figured out that he can't see anyone, but he thinks he must not be alone. There's no possible way he can be completely alone. So he's trying to see if there's somebody else there with him. Hello, he called, a bit louder than before. This time his voice was high, but singed with a rasp, like the words had been grated over the sand. Still no answer came. The water's edge crept toward him, then backed away. The leaves in the trees purred in the slight breeze. The boy's jaw tightened. He couldn't be alone, not completely alone. There must be someone near, someone who could hear him. He dug his feet into the sand, bent his legs as a brace, and then gathered his voice from deep within himself. Hello! An explosion came from the depths of the trees. A roar drove over him as every leaf and branch erupted. Riding atop the sound were the high-pitched squawks of thousands of birds upset that their quiet had been disturbed. They rose up from the tops of the trees, so many that they changed the color of the sky. Circling above him, squawking in frightened, angry bursts. The boy raised his arms to shield his head. Fear sparked in his belly. The birds flapped their wings harder. Bones creaked as they stretched with every beat. Their feathers stiffened to sharp, clanging points. The beaks lengthened too, gnashing with loud clack, clack, clacks. The noise grew deafening as the distended birds blocked out the sun. The boy ran, but there was nowhere to hide. He scrambled across the sand, away from the birds, but the ground trembled before him. Black spikes of rock shot up in his path, threatening to spear the boy. Gasping, he turned back, but the birds still swarmed the sky above. The boy ran to the green wall, dark, spooky, but maybe a place to hide. But when he got close, branches twisted and curled, creaking toward him. A loud hiss escaped through the leaves. The boy cried out, then ran back and back as fast as his feet would take him. He ran until he splashed into the searching fingers of the incoming tide. The water had seemed calm before, but now greedy waves tugged at his ankles. They wanted him to go in. They wanted to take him down. They wanted to drag him beneath the surface. The boy fled to the center of the beach, the place where he'd been born. He curled up as small as he could and shut his eyes tight. Everything had turned scary. Everything had turned bad. How was that possible? Once upon a time, he murmured, once upon a time, there was a boy who was hidden. He waited for the birds or rocks or trees or water to attack. He waited to be hurt, but nothing happened. After a while, his heart slowed and the roar around him began to hush. The boy cracked one eye open. The birds had shrunk back to their normal size and jetted away behind the green wall. The trees swayed quietly in the breeze, their branches pointing to the sky. The sand stretched out along the coast, a pale ribbon that looked as soft as cream, and the ocean waves danced all the way to the horizon. Quiet fell once again. The boy's arms slid, shaking to his sides. He didn't know who he was or where he was, but he knew he wasn't safe on the beach and he had nowhere to go. So that is the end of the first chapter of the book. And as you can see, there was the spikes that I talked about, the spiky path, black spikes of rock shot up in his path. And that was inspired by the iron shore. And the waves, the hiss in there, you find out later on in the book what the hiss is. And that was also inspired by something in Cayman. And the waves, because I loved going to the beach when I was a kid and still do. I still love the ocean. So all of that I brought from my real life and I put it into the book. And the once upon a time story where it says, once upon a time, there was a boy who was hidden. So he would use stories to help him feel braver. And that's what I did as a kid. And that's what the boy in the book does. So even with all of that, pulling all of this stuff in, it still wasn't easy to make this book happen. Here's a bunch of Post-it notes that I had, all color-coded and everything, when I was working out what the story was going to be like. And I did a lot of revisions. This was just a small amount of the revisions that I do. I love trees. I try to save paper as much as I can, but sometimes I have to do printouts. This was just a few of the printouts I did, but I did many, many more revisions. And I would get feedback from other people, and then I would revise it again until I could make it a story that was deep in my heart, a story that I was really, truly proud of. And I would read it aloud, and I would read it to my two dogs. You saw Annie earlier on, and this is also Peanuts. And Annie and Peanuts know my stories better than anybody in the whole world because I read the stories out loud over and over and over again so that I can get a feel for the story and the language and everything. And Annie and Peanuts would always listen, and they like the stories too, which is good. So once I was finished with the book, then I had to, and I felt like it was the book that I could really be proud of. Then I had to gather even more courage. It took a lot of courage to write the book. I never thought anyone was going to read it. So then I had to gather up even more courage and send it out to agents and editors. It was so scary. I was so scared. And the book got lots of rejections. Sometimes it would get rejections and I would revise it again and send it out again because that even though I had this beast, this voice inside me that was telling me that I was going to fail, I had to keep remembering my dream and I couldn't give up no matter what. I had to make my own courage. And I remembered that Post-it note, that once upon a time Post-it note, and I had to keep moving forward to create my own happy ending. And then one day I signed with an editor, and then about a year later, my editor at Simon & Schuster said she wanted to publish the book and that my story was going to become a book after all. So once upon a time, a girl didn't give up and she made her dream come true. So So here is me on the day that the book came out. This was back in 2018, so it was 2 years ago now, and now the book's also in paperback. But the day that it first came out, I went to my local Barnes & Noble with my husband, and he took a picture of me seeing my book on the bookshelf for the first time. It was amazing. It was an amazing, amazing day. And next year, I'm going to get to do this twice more, because I've got 2 more books coming out next year. I have had to make a lot of courage for that. So I'm very excited. It's a wonderful feeling having done all of that work. And there it is, after I never thought it would be possible for it to even happen in the first place. And then last year, the book even won an award from the Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators, which was, again, amazing for somebody who never thought she could be an author, and then never thought that the stories I was going to tell anyone would care. And now the book's out on shelves, and it's been translated into different languages. And the bully in my head, I was able to tell him, see, you were wrong. I could do it after all. So here's what I want to tell you. No matter who you are, no matter where you're from, if you're from a small little town or a big city or anything, I grew up all over the world, and I lived in a tiny little, the smallest island just about that there is in the Caribbean, and I still managed to do this. So no matter who you are, no matter where you're from, no matter what kind of beasts you have around you, whether they're inside beasts with your, thinking you're going to fail, or if you're outside beasts with bullies telling you bad things, you can make your own happy ending. You can live your dreams. It's scary, I know, but you can change your story, just like the boy does in my book, just like I did. We all have beasts in our lives, whether they're outside us or inside us, but we can overcome them by changing the stories we tell ourselves. If you have a voice in your head that tells you that you are going to fail, change it. Change the story you tell yourself. Tell yourself that you are good, that you are smart, and then you will start to believe it. And for the people around you too, help them. Don't tell them bad things about them, because they're going to believe them. Tell them good things about them, and then they will believe those things, and then they will be good. And hopefully then they will do the same to you. They will tell you good things about you, because you are the hero of your story. You can make your own courage and know that you can be whatever you want to be. I believe in you, each and every one of you, and I know that you can be whatever you want to be. Okay, so now it's your turn. We're going to do a once upon a time story yourself. So I want you to read along with me, okay? Say this out loud. Once upon a time, I was afraid and I doubted myself. But I worked hard, and I made my own courage, and I made my dreams come true. Okay, so thank you very much for listening to my story about me and about how this book came about. And I really want to thank the Writers League of Texas for their fantastic Project Wise program that's allowing me to talk to you today. And when we're not in lockdown anymore, I'd love to come visit you at your schools and tell you more about this book and my other books that I'll have coming out next year. Thank you. Bye.